The last concert in Times Square would be remembered not for its music, but for the silence that followed. Madison Wells stood center stage, her voice soaring above the crowd of thousands as New York's biggest New Year's celebration since the post-pandemic era reached its peak. The crystal-clear December night made the stars visible even through the city's ever-present light pollution, though later many would realize those weren't stars at all. The first sign came through the speakers, a subtle distortion that the sound engineers initially dismissed as feedback. Madison noticed it too, a strange resonance that made her perfect pitch sense tingle with wrongness. But the show had to go on, and the countdown to 21:57 had already begun. 10 seconds before midnight, the frequencies shifted. 9 seconds, and every electronic device in Times Square began to emit a high-pitched whine. 8 seconds, and Madison's in-ear monitors screamed with discordant harmonies that shouldn't have been possible. By 7, the massive LED screens that had been showing her performance began to ripple like water, their digital displays warping into impossible patterns. At 6, the first crystal ship emerged from behind the cloud cover, its surface refracting the city lights like a diamond the size of a skyscraper. 5 seconds, and the crowd's excited cheering turned to screams of terror. 4 seconds before midnight, every speaker in Times Square exploded simultaneously, showering the crowd with debris as the alien vessel's resonant field turned their own technology against them. 3 seconds, and Madison watched in horror as the crystal ship released smaller crystalline structures that began to descend toward the crowd. 2 seconds before the new year, and the first military jets appeared on the horizon, their missiles already launching toward the alien vessel. 1 second before everything changed forever, Madison saw the missiles impact the crystal ship's surface and do absolutely nothing. Midnight struck, and the world as humanity knew it ended not with an explosion, but with a symphony of silence. The following hours became a blur of chaos and confusion. The Harmonic Collective, as they would later be known, launched simultaneous attacks on every major city on Earth. Their crystalline technology operated on principles that defied human understanding, using sound waves and frequencies to disable everything from simple smartphones to military-grade weapon systems. Reports flooded in from around the globe. London's air defense systems went dark after being exposed to what survivors described as living music. The Chinese military's most advanced electromagnetic weapons simply stopped working when faced with the aliens' resonant fields. In Moscow, the entire power grid collapsed after the crystalline ships released what witnesses called solid sound into the infrastructure. General Sandra Morrison watched from the Pentagon's underground command center as screen after screen went dark. The most advanced military force in human history found itself helpless against an enemy that turned sound itself into a weapon. Conventional explosives did nothing against the crystal ship's structures, which seemed to absorb and redirect any energy directed at them. They're not just using sound, Dr. James Harrison, the military's chief science advisor, explained during the first emergency briefing. They're manipulating fundamental frequencies that exist in all matter. Our technology, our weapons, even our buildings. Everything has a natural resonance, and they found a way to control it. By dawn of the first day, every major military installation on Earth had been neutralized. The Harmonic Collective didn't need to destroy humanity's defenses. They simply rendered them useless, creating fields of resonant energy that turned any electronic device, more complex than a calculator, into an inert piece of metal and plastic. The few communications that still functioned brought reports of crystal structures being erected in major cities, each one emitting frequencies that kept human technology from operating within a 10-mile radius. The age of human technological dominance had come to an end in less than 24 hours. But in the chaos of that first night, no one noticed the most important detail of all. How the crystal ships seemed to shiver every time Madison Wells had screamed into her dead microphone, her voice carrying notes that would soon prove to be humanity's greatest hope for survival. Dr. Amanda Mitchell hadn't sung a note in public since she left the Metropolitan Opera 5 years ago. Now, standing in the depths of Cheyenne Mountain's acoustic research lab, she wished she'd never stopped practicing. The crystalline shard before her, barely the size of her palm, had been retrieved from a downed scout ship at great cost. 3 good soldiers had died getting it here, their bodies found with their combat suits' electronics completely fused. The alien fragment still hummed with an almost imperceptible frequency that made her teeth ache. "Nothing," she muttered, reviewing the latest test results. 2 weeks of running every frequency they could generate through their equipment had produced 0 effect on the crystal. It absorbed or reflected everything they threw at it, just like the ships above. Amanda slammed her hand down on the console in frustration. The movement knocked over her coffee cup, and as she reached to catch it, she let out an instinctive, sharp note of surprise. A perfect high C that she hadn't hit since her days as the Queen of the Night. The crystal cracked. For a moment, she thought she'd imagined it. But there it was, a hairline fracture running through the alien fragment, spreading like ice breaking on a spring lake. "Run that back," she ordered the lab's AI system. The high-speed cameras had caught everything. Frame by frame, she watched as her voice created a resonance pattern unlike anything their machines had produced. The crystal hadn't just cracked, it had recoiled, as if in pain. Within an hour, the mountain's command center was filled with senior military officials watching the footage. General Morrison herself had flown in from what remained of the Pentagon. "Do it again," the general ordered, her eyes fixed on the new crystal sample they'd brought in. Amanda took a deep breath, centered herself like she used to before taking the stage, and let out the same note. This time, she watched as the crystal not only cracked but seemed to writhe, its surface rippling, as if trying to escape the sound. "Holy hell," Colonel Richards whispered. "It's not just the frequency. The machines have been producing that same note for days with no effect. It's something about the human voice itself." Amanda's mind raced back to her performance days. "It's the overtones," she said, excitement building. "The human voice doesn't just produce a single frequency. It creates a complex pattern of harmonics that no machine can perfectly replicate. We don't just sing notes. We infuse them with emotion, with life. That's why they haven't tried to communicate with us," Dr. Harrison added, his eyes wide. "They're not just using sound as a weapon. Sound is what they are, and human voices must be toxic to them." The next 48 hours became a blur of tests and confirmations. They brought in other singers, voice actors, even a group of monks known for their throat singing. Each human voice had different effects on the crystal samples, but all could damage them in ways their most advanced technology couldn't. "We need more," General Morrison declared during the emergency brief. "Every singer, every voice actor, every person with significant vocal training. Get them all." Amanda watched as the plan came together. Special forces teams were already being dispatched to rescue key performers from occupied cities. The few functioning communication networks broadcast coded messages that only musicians would understand, calling them to secret gathering points. But it was Madison Wells, the pop star from Times Square, who provided the final piece of the puzzle. Retrieved from a refugee camp in New Jersey, she described how the crystal ships had shuddered when she screamed that first night. "They're not just vulnerable to trained voices," Amanda realized. "They're vulnerable to raw human emotion expressed through sound. We don't need an army of opera singers. We need people who can channel pure, genuine feeling through their voices." As she looked at the cracked crystal shard, Amanda felt something she hadn't experienced since the invasion began. Hope. Humanity had lost its technology, its weapons, its entire way of life. but they still had their voices. And for the first time, she understood why ancient myths spoke of songs that could move mountains and shake the heavens. They were about to make those myths real. The Nevada desert had never heard anything like this before. Inside a converted nuclear bunker, two voices prepared for humanity's first counterattack. Marcus, the Hellbringer Davidson, stood in his testing chamber, the veins in his neck bulging, as he practiced his signature death metal growls. In the adjacent room, Isabella Santos warmed up with vocal runs that could shatter wine glasses. They were as different as two singers could be. He was known for making stadiums shake with his guttural roars, while she had performed at every major opera house in the world. "Are you sure about this?" Colonel Richards asked Dr. Mitchell, who was monitoring the readouts from behind reinforced glass, mixing classical and metal seams. "Unconventional. That's exactly why it might work," Amanda replied, adjusting the sensors. "The crystals react to emotional resonance." Isabella's technical precision, combined with Marcus's raw power, could create harmonics we've never seen before. Above them, through a mile of solid rock, a captured scout ship hung suspended in a massive testing chamber. They'd lost 30 good people getting it here intact, and another 12 just moving it underground where its resonance couldn't call for help. "Begin test sequence Alpha," Amanda announced over the intercom. "Isabella, start with the Queen of the Night's area. Marcus, wait for my signal." Isabella's voice rose, pure and clear, the famous Mozart piece filling the chamber. The sensors showed immediate reactions from the crystal ship, ripples of distress running through its structure, but not enough to cause real damage. "Now, Marcus." The death metal singer's roar joined Isabella's soprano, creating something entirely new. Their voices intertwined in ways that should have been cacophonous, but instead formed perfect, terrible harmony. The crystal ship began to vibrate. "Energy readings are off the scale," Dr. Harrison reported, his eyes fixed on the instruments. "The crystalline structure is destabilizing at the molecular level." Above them, the scout ship's surface began to crack. Light poured from the fissures as the combined frequencies of classical training and metal rage tore through its alien architecture. Isabella hit an impossible high note just as Marcus dropped into his lowest register, and the ship simply shattered. The explosion of crystalline shards was contained by the chamber's energy fields, but the impact still shook the entire facility. In the sudden silence that followed, Amanda's voice shook with excitement. "That's it. That's how we fight back." Within hours, Project Orpheus shifted into high gear. They began forming what they called voice squads, carefully matched teams of singers from different disciplines. Opera singers paired with rock stars, gospel choirs combined with throat singers, beatboxers working alongside yodelers. But the harmonic collective was learning too. The first attack on a military prison camp in Colorado proved that. The voice squad had successfully destroyed the guard towers, but the main structure had been reinforced, its crystalline matrix adapted to resist the frequencies that had worked before. "They're evolving," Amanda reported to General Morrison. "Each time we use a particular combination of voices, they adjust their structures to compensate. We need more varieties, more combinations they can't predict." The general's response was immediate. "Then we'll give them a concert they'll never forget." The training facility expanded rapidly. Every day, more singers arrived. Some rescued from occupied cities, others making their own way after hearing the coded messages. Each brought their own unique voice, their own emotional resonance to add to the growing arsenal. But the Harmonic Collective had noticed the pattern. Their ships now specifically targeted anyone caught singing. Entire musical districts in cities were leveled. Concert halls were destroyed. They recognized the threat that human voices posed to their kind. In her private lab, Amanda watched new footage of crystal ships attacking a gospel choir in Atlanta. The aliens were learning, adapting, becoming more aggressive in their hunt for human musicians. But they'd made one critical mistake. They're afraid of us, she realized. For the first time since they arrived, we'd found something that actually frightens them. And if there was one thing history had proven, it was that humanity was at its most dangerous when backed into a corner. The chorus of resistance was just beginning to warm up. No one expected the breakthrough to come from the cafeteria. Private Sarah Jenkins had been telling a terrible joke. Something about two crystal ships walking into a bar. The punchline was awful, but the stress of the past few months had everyone on edge. The entire table burst into hysterical laughter. 3 floors below, in the secure testing chamber, every crystal sample shattered simultaneously. Dr. Amanda Mitchell was recording the event when it happened. She played the security footage back a dozen times, watching as the sound of pure, unrestrained human laughter tore through the alien material like it was made of sugar glass. It's not just about the sound, she explained to General Morrison, an hour later. It's about the emotional resonance. Genuine laughter carries something our trained vocals haven't been able to replicate. Pure, unfiltered joy. The discovery changed everything. Project Orpheus expanded its recruitment beyond musicians. Stand-up comedians were brought in from underground clubs. Voice actors who could laugh on command joined the training programs. Even the most hardened Special Forces teams now included mandatory comedy training. They called it Operation Mirth. And the first field test exceeded all expectations. A squad of Marines, trained in both combat and comedy, infiltrated a crystal ship's perimeter. Their synchronized burst of genuine laughter, triggered by their squad clown, telling the worst possible joke at the perfect moment, reduced 3 alien structures to powder. But the real innovation came when Lieutenant Jessica Songbird Rodriguez combined the techniques. Her team developed what they called combat cantata, a fighting style that mixed vocal harmonies with bursts of laughter, shouts of rage, and even coordinated whispers. The human voice is the most complex instrument ever created, Amanda told her growing team. We don't just make sound. We create emotional frequencies that these crystalline beings can't process. Every laugh, every shout, every whispered threat carries power they never expected to face. The underground bunkers were converted into training grounds unlike any in military history. In one chamber, a former death metal singer taught Marines how to project rage through their battle cries. Next door, a comedy coach worked with Delta Force operators on timing their laughs for maximum impact. The Harmonic Collective responded by modifying their crystal structures, making them more resilient to specific emotional frequencies. But this only proved human adaptability superior. The more complex they made their defenses, the more vulnerable they became to the chaotic nature of human expression. They're like a sheet of glass, Dr. Harrison explained during a briefing. Make it stronger in one direction, and it becomes more brittle in another. They can't account for the full spectrum of human emotion because they've never experienced anything like it. Amanda watched from the observation deck as a new squad ran drills. Their voices moved from battle hymns to coordinated laughter to primal screams of fury, each transition causing different reactions in the test crystals. The aliens could adapt to any single approach, but the combination of human emotion expressed through sound was proving too complex for their defenses. Status report, General Morrison demanded during the evening brief. We have 20 full-voice squads ready for deployment, Amanda replied. Another 30 in advanced training. The comedians have been integrated successfully into the combat teams, and the new emotional resonance techniques are showing promise. But what, Doctor? The aliens are learning too. Their latest crystals show signs of attempting to dampen emotional frequencies entirely. They're trying to create dead zones where human feelings can't resonate at all. The general's face hardened. Can they succeed? Amanda smiled for the first time in days. They don't understand what they're dealing with. You can't stop human emotion, any more than you can stop the earth from turning. And as long as we can feel, we can fight. In the training chamber below, a squad of soldiers began their evening drills, their voices rising in a battle cry that contained both perfect harmony and perfect fury. The crystal samples never stood a chance. Lieutenant Maria High C. Rodriguez crouched in the cargo hold of what appeared to be a civilian transport ship, her elite voice squad hidden among crates and containers. The plan was either brilliant or suicidal, probably both. "Sound check," she whispered, and her team responded with the softest of hums, each member's pitch perfect despite the tension. They'd trained for months for this moment, learning to control every aspect of their voices, from the most devastating battle cry to the subtlest whisper. Operation Thundersong was humanity's first major counteroffensive. While conventional forces launched a diversionary attack on the crystal ships over Washington, D.C., 30 transport vessels like theirs would attempt to penetrate the aliens' defense grid using their own resonance channels against them. "Remember, Maria's second-in-command," Jake Bassline Thompson whispered, "we're riding their sound waves in, like surfing on their frequencies." The ship shuddered as it entered the outer perimeter of crystal ship territory. Above them, the massive alien vessels hung like frozen lightning, their surfaces refracting the dawn light into deadly beautiful patterns. Contact in 3, 2, 1. The first crystal scanner washed over their ship, its resonant field seeking any active technology. But the transport was deliberately primitive, no complex electronics, no modern engines, just simple machines that the aliens' frequencies couldn't disable. And hidden in the hold, 30 human voices held their breath. The scanner passed. Then another. Their ship, looking like just another refugee transport seeking safe passage, continued its approach toward the main crystal fleet. Around them, other transports did the same, each carrying their own voice squads. Maria checked her ancient mechanical watch, a timepiece chosen because it couldn't be affected by the aliens' technology. 2 minutes to position. That's when everything went wrong. One of the crystal ships changed its scanning pattern, its beam cutting through their hull at an unexpected angle. Maria saw the panic in her team's eyes. They'd been spotted too soon, too far from their target. She made a split-second decision. "Change of plans," she whispered fiercely. "Plan Echo. Now." Her squad knew what that meant. They drilled it 1,000 times, but never expected to actually use it. Plan Echo. When stealth fails, go for the throat. 30 voices rose in perfect, terrible harmony. Not the battle cry they'd planned, but a sound that started as a low laugh and built into something more. A sound that carried joy and rage and defiance all at once. The crystal ship's scanner beam shattered. "Move," Maria ordered, and her team burst from the hold, their voices now at full power. The transport's crew, all trained for this contingency, aimed their ship directly at the nearest crystal vessel. Around them, other transports revealed their true nature, the sky filled with human voices raised in combat songs, each squad adding their own harmony to the chaos. The crystal ships, caught off guard by the sudden assault, began to vibrate dangerously. Maria led her team in what they'd named the Thunder Chorus, a combination of operatic high notes, death metal growls, and pure emotional release that could shatter crystal at 50 paces. Their target ship's surface began to crack, its resonant field fluctuating wildly. "Board them," she commanded, and her squad leaped across the narrowing gap between their transport and the crystal ship's hull. Their voices never faltered, their harmony maintained even as they fought their way inside through the spreading cracks. What they found inside would change the course of the war. The crystal ship's control center was pure resonance, a chamber where sound itself was used to navigate and fight. And Maria's team, trained in the very manipulation of sound, realized they could do more than just destroy it. They could control it. "Let's show them what human music really sounds like," Maria said, a fierce grin on her face as her team took position around the crystal controls. And as the battle raged outside, 30 human voices began to turn an alien warship's own weapons against its fleet, their song carrying both victory and a warning. Humanity had found its voice, and the galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Amanda Mitchell stared at the holographic display in Project Orpheus's new command center, watching the captured crystal ship's internal structure pulse with light. After Lieutenant Rodriguez's team had successfully hijacked the vessel, everything they thought they knew about the Harmonic Collective had changed. "It's not just a ship," she explained to General Morrison. "It's a living symphony. Every crystal formation is part of a larger harmonic structure that responds to emotional frequencies. When Maria's team took control, they didn't just override its systems. They connected with it. The proof floated before them. A three-dimensional map of the ship's crystal matrix, each section glowing with different colors, as human voices interacted with it. The most striking discovery was how the structure reacted to different emotional states. "Watch this," Amanda said, nodding to the test chamber below where Marcus, the Hellbringer Davidson, stood ready. "Show them pure rage." The death metal singer let loose a roar of primal fury. The crystal matrix flared red, its structures actually recoiling from the intensity of the emotion. But then something unexpected happened. Parts of the crystal began to resonate with the rage, amplifying it. "Now, Isabella, pure joy." Isabella Santos's laugh filled the chamber, and the crystal structure shifted to brilliant gold, creating harmonics that made everyone in the room feel lighter, almost euphoric. "They don't just react to our emotions," Dr. Harrison said, his voice filled with wonder. "They can be programmed by them. Every human feeling creates a unique harmonic pattern that changes their very structure." The discovery led to a new phase of the war. Voice squads now trained not just to destroy crystal structures, but to reshape them. Teams learned to project specific emotions in combat, creating complex harmonic patterns that could turn enemy ships against each other. But the Harmonic Collective was far from defeated. Their response came 3 days later, during a major offensive in Europe. Maria Rodriguez's team was leading the assault when they first encountered it, a new type of crystal formation that seemed to absorb emotional frequencies without breaking. Worse, it began to emit a counter-frequency that targeted human vocal cords directly. "They're trying to silence us," Amanda reported during the emergency brief. "The new crystals release a resonance that causes temporary vocal paralysis. They're learning to fight back against our greatest weapon." The casualties mounted. Voice squads across the globe reported similar attacks, with some soldiers losing their voices for hours or even days after exposure. The Harmonic Collective had launched their counter-offensive, and it was devastatingly effective. But they'd made one critical mistake. It was Private Jenkins, the accidental discoverer of laughter's power, who found the flaw in their plan. During an attack, her voice stolen by the enemy's new weapon, she continued fighting through hand signals and silent expressions. To everyone's shock, the crystal structures still reacted. "It's not just about the sound," Amanda realized, watching the footage. "It's about the emotion itself. Even a whisper carries the same emotional resonance as a shout if the feeling behind it is strong enough." The next wave of training began immediately. Voice squads learned to fight in complete silence, channeling their emotions through the barest of sounds. They discovered that a whispered battle cry, backed by true fighting spirit, could be just as devastating as a full-volume attack. "They think they can silence us," General Morrison said during the strategic update, "but they don't understand what they're dealing with. Human emotion can't be suppressed by taking away our voices." In the testing chamber, Maria's team demonstrated the new techniques. Their whispers, barely audible but charged with intense emotion, caused the crystal samples to shatter just as effectively as their loudest songs had before. Amanda watched the display, a grim smile on her face. The Harmonic Collective had tried to take away humanity's voice, only to force them to evolve beyond the need for volume. In their attempt to silence Earth's defenders, they'd only made them more dangerous. The next phase of the war would be fought in whispers, but those whispers would shake the stars themselves. The quantum computer's holographic display filled the war room with dancing patterns of light, each one representing a different human voice connected to the neural network. Dr. Amanda Mitchell watched as millions of individual frequencies merged and separated in an endless dance of harmonic possibilities. Project Symphony, she explained to the assembled military leadership, is more than just a communication system. It's a way to synchronize the voices of every human being on Earth into a single perfect harmony. The technology had been developed in secret over the past 3 months, ever since they'd discovered how the Harmonic Collective's own neural network operated. By studying the captured crystal ship, they'd learned how to link multiple consciousness through sound itself. The aliens used their network to coordinate their ships, Dr. Harrison added, manipulating the display to show the enemy's communication patterns. But they never imagined we could create something similar using pure human emotion as the carrier wave. General Morrison studied the complex data streams with a veteran's eye. And you're sure this can work on a global scale? Amanda nodded, bringing up another simulation. We've already tested it with groups of up to 10,000. The results were beyond anything we expected. The footage played. A massive chamber filled with people from all walks of life, their voices joined through the neural interface. The combined harmonic force had not just destroyed the test crystals, it had temporarily warped the very fabric of reality around the facility. The human voice contains frequencies that science is only beginning to understand, Amanda continued. When we join millions of voices together, each contributing their own emotional resonance to the whole, we create a weapon that could tear the universe apart, Dr. Harrison finished quietly. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They were proposing something unprecedented in human history, a global flash mob that would turn the entire planet into one massive core. The risks are substantial, Amanda acknowledged. We'll be pushing the boundaries of both technology and human consciousness. But the Harmonic Collective is preparing their final assault. Our long-range sensors show them gathering the largest fleet we've ever detected. Maria Rodriguez, recently promoted to captain after her successful ship hijacking, stepped forward. My teams have confirmed it. They're building something big out there, a crystal structure large enough to engulf the entire planet in its resonance field. How long do we have? The general asked. 2 weeks, maybe less, Maria replied. Once that structure is complete, they'll be able to control every frequency that reaches Earth's surface. They're planning to silence us forever. Amanda gestured to the neural network display. Then we strike first. We've already begun installing the network nodes in every major population center. The interface is simple enough that anyone can use it. You just need to be able to make sound, any sound, and feel emotion. And you really think people will participate? Someone asked. The whole world. They already are. Amanda brought up a global map showing thousands of points of light, each one a community already connected to the network. We don't need trained singers anymore. Every human voice carries power. Every laugh, cry, whisper, or scream contains the emotional resonance we need. When we join them all together, she let the thought hang in the air. They'd all seen what a small voice squad could do. The potential power of billions of voices united in purpose was almost unimaginable. Begin the final preparations, General Morrison ordered, and may whatever gods are out there help us all. As the leaders filed out, Amanda stayed behind, watching the simulation of Earth's combined voices dance before her. The mathematics were perfect. the technology tested and ready. But there was one variable they couldn't fully calculate: the raw power of human emotion, when channeled through 8 billion souls at once. They were about to turn the entire planet into a weapon, using nothing but the voices in every human heart. And the universe would never be the same. Dawn broke over a silent Earth. For the first time in human history, every person on the planet held their breath, waiting for the signal. Above them, the harmonic collective's massive crystal structure blotted out the sun, its surface reflecting the morning light like a shattered mirror. In the command bunker, Dr. Amanda Mitchell's fingers hovered over the neural network's activation controls. Captain Maria Rodriguez stood beside her, while General Morrison watched from the Strategic Command Center. The quantum computer's displays showed 8 billion points of light, every human being on Earth, connected and ready. "They're moving into final position," Maria reported, watching the crystal structure's alignment. 5 minutes until they're able to project their silencing field. Amanda nodded, her eyes on the network statistics. "All ground teams report ready. The emotional resonance readings they're higher than we've ever seen. People aren't just afraid. They're angry." "Good." General Morrison's voice crackled over the comm. "We'll need that anger. Begin the countdown." The signal went out through the neural network, reaching every human mind simultaneously. In cities and villages, in bunkers and basements, in every corner of the globe, people prepared to join their voices in one final defiant cry. 3 minutes, Maria called out. Crystal structure at 80% alignment. Amanda watched the emotional readings spike higher. "The network is stabilizing. We're seeing spontaneous harmonic formation already. People are starting to sync naturally." In Times Square, where this had all begun, Madison Wells stood among thousands, her voice ready to lead her section of the global core. In the Nevada desert, Marcus, the Hellbringer Davidson, and Isabella Santos prepared to add their trained voices to the mix. And in every home, every shelter, every hiding place, ordinary people waited to become part of something extraordinary. 1 minute, Maria announced, crystal structure approaching final position. Amanda's hand remained steady over the controls. All network nodes green. Harmonic resonance patterns holding steady. "We're ready." 30 seconds. Above them, the crystal structure's surface began to pulse with light, preparing to release its planet-wide silencing field. The harmonic collective had spent months building this weapon, designed to strip humanity of its most powerful defense forever. They were 10 seconds too late. "Now," Amanda commanded, and pressed the activation signal. 8 billion voices rose as one. The neural network took every shout, every whisper, every laugh, and cry, and wove them together into something that had never existed before, a symphony of pure human emotion, amplified by technology, but powered by the raw force of human will. The wave of sound that rose from Earth's surface was visible from space. The combined voices of humanity struck the crystal structure like a physical force, creating harmonic patterns that defied physics itself. Where single voices had cracked crystal, this global chorus began to tear reality apart. The structure's surface rippled like water, its carefully aligned crystals unable to maintain cohesion in the face of such emotional power. Cracks spread across its surface faster than light, each one spewing rainbow patterns of broken resonance into space. "It's working," Maria shouted over the rising sound. "The structure is breaking apart." But Amanda's eyes were fixed on a different display. "Something's happening to the network. The harmonic patterns are evolving." The 8 billion voices had created something new. A frequency that didn't just destroy crystal, but transformed it. The massive structure above them wasn't just breaking. It was changing, its very molecular structure being rewritten by the power of human emotion. As the final notes of Earth's song faded, the remains of the crystal structure hung in orbit like a cloud of stardust, each particle now resonating with human frequencies. The harmonic collective's greatest weapon had become a monument to their defeat. "We did it," Maria whispered, her voice hoarse. "We actually did it." Amanda nodded, but her mind was already racing forward. The network data showed something unprecedented. The combined voices of humanity had created new forms of sound, new ways of manipulating reality through emotional resonance. They had changed not just the course of the war, but the very nature of human potential. The stars above seemed brighter somehow, as if they too were listening to the echo of Earth's victory song. Humanity had found its voice, and the universe would never stop listening.